What's up, chess lovers? This is East Africa, Africa to the world. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the center of African chess. Today I have a real treat for you, a classic David vs Goliath story from the 2025 African Amateurs Individual Chess Championships, which are taking place in Burundi. We are going to break down an incredible game where the lower-rated Sasha Mongeli, a woman FIDE master from Kenya, took on and defeated the higher-rated Madol Garang Panthou from South Sudan. This was a tense battle from the start to the finish, with a complex middle game and a razor-sharp endgame that simply have to see to believe. Hit that subscription button. Let's dive into this masterclass of an upset. Sasha Mongeli is a woman FIDE master, WFM, from Kenya. She was born in 1996. Sasha earned her WFM title in 2018 at the Chess Olympiad in Batumi, where she had a commanding performance, winning 7 over 8 games. She has won national chess championships multiple times. She plays for Nakuru Chess Club in Kenya and Mlago Chess Club in Uganda. While Madol Garang Panthou is a chess player from South Sudan, he is the second-ranked active player in his country. He has represented South Sudan in international events including 44th Chess Olympiad in 2022, and he plays for Chiroka Chess Club in Uganda. Ladies and gentlemen, let us begin. And in the white pieces, woman FIDE master Sasha Mongeli from Kenya opened the game with d4, and Madol Garang from South Sudan replied with knight f6, c4, e6, and after knight comes to f3, d5, bring us play. Queen's gambit declined. Sasha tried to make things interesting. She went for g3 variation, the sideline, and after knight comes to e4, planning to go ahead and cement the knight in the center by playing f5. Sasha played bishop g2, fianchetting the bishop and ready to go for short castling. Bishop e7, knight b d2, short castling from black and short castling from white. Knight comes to c6. Queen c2 is the move which would be expected, followed by pawn coming to f3, b4, and then fianchetting the bishop sit on b2. But however, Sasha played knight takes e4, and after d takes e4, she played knight e5. The pawn which is on d4 is hanging, but remember also the pawn which is on e4 is also hanging. So in this position, Madol played knight b4, the best move in the position. Bishop takes e4, so it means all the players are even. He played f6, trying to hit on the knight to sit back. So the natural move is basically bringing the knight to sit back on f3, its original square, but Sasha wanted to make the game interesting. She played knight d3, keeping alive to go ahead and expand on the king side if given an opportunity. e5, e3, knight comes to e6, 4, expanding on the king side, and after f5, bishop d5, pinning down the knight. e4, Sasha played knight comes to f2, but however, knight coming to e5 should have been played. For example, after knight e5, we could have seen c6, and after bishop takes e6, bishop takes e6, b3, and after queen b6, trying to put a hit on the pawn which is on e3, then we could see queen coming to e2, followed by bishop coming to b2, and this could be a very interesting game to play. But however, after e4, she played knight f2, and Garang got a slight advantage. He played c6, hitting on the bishop, bishop takes e6, bishop takes e6, and she decided to maintain the queens on the board. She played queen c2. b5 should have been unspotted, but Madol played bishop c5, hitting on the pawn and delaying the bishop which is on c1 to develop because it has to put an eye on the pawn which is on e3. Bishop comes to d2, planning to go ahead and push the pawn on b4. Madol played f5, stopping the b4 idea. King g2, queen comes to b6, adding more pressure to the e3 pawn. Rook comes to e1, defending the pawn. Rook comes to d8, and after it's a b3, rook comes to d7, plan to go ahead and put all the 2 rooks on the same column. Rook comes to d1, to d8, bishop c1, f4. Sasha became so aggressive and she played g4, which is an interesting move. In this position, in the case of f takes g4, we could say rook takes d7, and after rook takes d7, queen takes e4, rook comes to e7, queen d3, and at least white is threatening to go ahead and push the pawn to win the pawn which is on g4. After g4, Panthou played a takes b3, and after a takes b3, he played rook takes d1, rook takes d1, and in this position, he played rook takes d1 once again, knight takes d1, putting an eye again to the pawn which is on e3, h6, stopping any further advancements, but however, he played queen d8. And Sasha went on to play g5, bishop comes to b4, bishop comes to b2. Bishop f7 should have been considered. In case of bishop coming to c3, then bishop still falling back on f8, trying to bring back the pieces in the future for attack would be better. But however, in this position, Panthou played queen d3, queen takes d3, e takes d3. And in this position, yes, white is opening up for the bishop to enter, but however, the pawn which is on d3 becomes a weakness in the future, as we are going to see. So we see bishop comes to c3, requesting for an exchange. Bishop takes and knight takes. Now we are going to be seeing an end game of a knight and bishop. Garang wanted to reduce all the pieces and take the game to draw each line, so he played b5, and Sasha went on and played c takes b5, and after c takes b5, instead of going ahead to take the pawn, so that also black can take the pawn and maintain the d3 pawn, she played b4, keeping all the pawns in the board. Bishop comes to c4, defending the pawns. King f2, trying to bring the king to take this pawn, which is on d3. You see d2, cutting off all the squares where the king can come from. Sasha played another brilliant move. She played e4, open up another square where the king can attack the pawn from. So we see f takes e4. She played, not even taking the, if you take the pawn with the knight, then this pawn queens. So that's why she played e3, attacking both pawns. She's attacking the pawn which is on e4, at the same time attacking the pawn which is on d2, threatening to queen. If you queen now, then the knight can take the pawn. King f7, bring the king, and now Sasha went on and played king takes d2, removing the threat. And in this position, king d6 should have been considered, following up, bring the king to attack the pawns, but however he played king e6, not even taking the pawn which is on e4, but Sasha played king e3, bishop f1, another waiting move, king takes e4, bishop g2. In this position, king d4 should have been considered, but Sasha played king e3, and now we see bishop c6, maintaining the pawn on the board, knight d1. And in this position, Madol went on and played h5, but however, h6 should have been considered. He played h5, and now we see g takes en passant, and then we see g takes h6, knight comes to f2, trying to maneuver the knight to come to where the juice is. King comes to f5, knight goes to d3, and in this position, bishop d7 should have been considered. The bishop very flexible, h5, and in this position, we see knight comes to e5, hitting on the bishop. Bishop goes to g2, knight f3, trying to maneuver and check the king and win the pawn. Now we see king comes to g4, moving out from the check. Knight e5 check, and after king f5, knight f3, king g4. There was a repetition, and finally she played knight d5, bishop f1, protecting the pawn. And in this position, she played another strong move. Sasha on fire. She played f5, pushing the pawn to go and queen. Madol played bishop c4, putting an eye on the square where the pawn is going to be moving to queen. But in case you go ahead and play king d5, this could be losing on the spot, because Sasha would play h4, which is a very brilliant move, because you can't take the pawn which is on h4. The pawn would be winning in a few. That's why after f5, Madol played bishop comes to c4, and after king comes to e4, king h3, trying to go ahead and win the pawn which is on h2. Knight comes to f3, defending the pawn. King goes to g2, f6, moving to go and queen. And now we see bishop comes to b3, king f4, moving out from the possible checks. King f2, and in this position she played h4, and because of time pressure, Madol blundered the game and he played king e2, rushing very fast to go and win the pawn. But in this position, Sasha delivered another brilliant check. She played knight d4 check, checking the king and winning the bishop on the spot. Madol resigned. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you the best of luck in your games.